Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out to open mic night uh, digitally in this time of pandemic. Um, I really appreciate you all being here. I hope you'll join me in having a pint and listening to some poetry by local writers. I thought I'd start the evening out by reading one of my own poems well, when I say that, I mean poem. Um, I recently wrote. It's called Other Poem. It's the featured piece in my forthcoming collection called Other Poem and Other Poems. Other Poem. This isn't the poem you intended to read, that this poet intended you to read. You should read that other poem. You know, the good one, the provocative, evocative one that considers the makeup of the human soul, the essence of an iris, the metaphysical connections buried like telecommunication cables in the mud of modernity, that will move you deeply, stoke your wondering, skew your perspective, that has effing structure and beats and thought out construction, that will reward your effort, your time. You know, that other poem. You should read that one. Thank you. Well, all right. I have a sign-up sheet that we have going here, and our first poet up is going to be my good friend Karen Holman, who actually writes much better poems than other poem. Karen, come on up.
Hi, Brian. You already know this poem, but it seems like the one that's most fitting for the situation. That's Walter back there, one of our cats. All right. This is called What I Would Have Taught My Daughter. I'll never tell you how you're alone, but how we touch. Words leap the synapses between us, our first bridges and roads. We're all contagious, sharing the same oxygen, and all our water circulates. In isolation, there is music. In blindness, we feel warmth, and loneliness too touches itself. This is our heirloom. No one is anonymous, no secret ever kept. Even the broken, beyond repair, call to someone. I won't say why we shatter as if it were our birthright, everything we touch, as if everything hasn't been crumbling anyway, since every particle went twirling into fields of these radiant poppies.
Thank you, Karen. That's a beautiful poem. I particularly like at this time, I guess, that line in isolation. There is music. That seems particularly relevant today. And everybody say hi to Walter, that cat. Okay, next up is my good and longtime friend Jerry Hinnon, who's a very talented writer, currently living in Alabama. Jerry, come on up.
Hi there. My name is Jerry Hinnon. I'm not sure how much introduction I'm supposed to provide, but
I can answer that question, Jerry. None. Get to the poem.
anyways, I'm going to read a poem. Brian, I know at one point read the book Wicked with his children because obviously it's a great book for kids. A little, kind of, in some ways. Anyway, so
Okay. It is true that I read Wicked to my 10-year-old daughter, and it was a mistake. There was way too much sex. But some things, Jerry, should remain in the past, okay? Why don't we just get to your poem?
this is a poem about the Wicked Witch of the West, more the Judy Garland Wizard of Oz version. And the he in it, just so you know, is the he, refers to fate. So don't get your pronouns mixed up there. I mentioned fate, and the he that follows refers to that. Anyways, the poem is entitled And Your Little Dog Too. She blows it then, not in the lesser airs, when she lets the monkeys gather rainwater in a drip pail by the wall, or stitches blue and cherry vests for them with matching bellhop hats. A call into the blackest arts dooms no one, nor their application, say, affixing flame to breathing straw. A witch's evil rasps no more on fate's deep ears than bluebird chirpings. Yes, he saw her rain clouds mustered for a man of tin. So, like that Munchkin sin could earn his touch. She could have lived to assemble flying bikes for growing witchlings, aged into riper greens with much to tell them of a sister's vengeance. But instead, she declares her wrath against the terrier, too, an animal who'd rather teed the heads of mice than chew holes in the hem of villainy, wishing more for sun-drenched poppy snoozes than the flight back into Kansas dust, and opens war on more than doe-eyed good. She picks a windless fight with shadowed forests, streams, the emeralds in the earth, house-heavy forces of a water-colored sky. When she condemns an innocent dog for the ruby shimmer of its master's shoes, it's then she casts her die. So that's my poem. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Jerry. That's a great poem. I love that poem. I'm a big fan of your writing. Hope you know that. Next up, by the way, what's up with everybody bringing their cats to open mic? What's up with that? Anyway, next up is Marcy Parker, a good friend of mine who is an excellent writer, but not so good necessarily with a camera, as you'll see. Come on up, Marcy.
One night in New Mexico. A week ago, my brother still breathed this earthly air. Tonight, I see his face in the moon gazing down at me. When we were children, we rode home in the car one night after a very long hike in the mountains with our parents. I was asleep on the back seat. Chris rode between our parents in the front. I was 5, he was 4. My father mentioned it in his journal. Riding across the high desert toward Albuquerque, they watched a full moon rise above the Sandias. The man in the moon comes down for me sometimes, my brother solemnly shared. Oh, my father asked, and then what do you do? We ride across the sky and slide down the stars, Chris replied. My boy, my father wrote in his journal. My sweet boy.
Thank you, Marcy, for that lovely and deeply personal poem. And by the way, I know that she actually shot that with intent because of the background gives it a New Mexico flair, and almost everything Marcy does is creatively is with intent. All right, next up is Deanna White, who is like several of these people actually a former storyteller for me. Deanna, why don't you come on up?
The trees. There used to be 2 of us. The ice storm of '97 took my friend. Watched all those years together, kids jumping from a rope onto a couch. Well, I'm old now. In the winter, I look dark, barren, and twisted, but spring still brings a few fragrant flowers. You know what? In the summer, I have a new friend. I get connected to the new maple tree. A hammock hangs between us. We both feel the love.
Thank you, Deanna. That was beautiful. Next up is Hank Greenspan, who is a brilliant writer. He's a playwright. He's just multi-talented, and I love his work. Hank, come on up. The mic is yours.
Okay. This is a poem that requires probably a trigger warning for reasons that will become apparent. It is not an upper. It is called Fear of Drowning. I've always been terrified of drowning. Alabaster figures from perfect storms, drifting downward, hair displacing upward, my horror in the mirror. The bubbly is not champagne. We'll call them lost souls and submariners. Souls in a bubble, ships in a bottle, silenced SOS. Alveoli patrol the inland sea, exchanging breaths for spirits that do not give up the ship. while illness plies a pirate's trade to seize our treasure, to raid our sunken chests. Thank you.
Thank you, Hank, very much for that. And all of you should know, by the way, that while that was a fairly somber poem, Hank has a terrific sense of humor that really runs through a lot of his work. Anyway, next up is, oh look, we have a two-timer. Deanna is going to come back with us for a second piece. Deanna, let's hear that next poem.
So you work in a bakery, so you say. What do you sell there all day, every day? Ah, bread, cakes, pies, and candy. All that is tasty and is so dandy. But do you give anything away for free? What else shall I come to get, and what to see? Yes, a listening ear to the lonely, encouragement to the sad, a joke, a smile, a pat on the hand, whatever it takes to make the customer glad. Glad they came to see us, glad they came in the door, so glad they came, they will come back for more. I wrote that when I worked at Zingerman's Bakehouse in 2012.
Thanks very much for that, Deanna. Thank you very much. All right, our last poet for the evening is Dinah Tutine. Dinah, did I pronounce that correctly? I don't know that I've ever tried to pronounce your last name. If I didn't get that right, I apologize. Dinah is an actress that I have adored working with. So, Dinah, come on up and read us what you've got.
The First Pancake. Side 1. First draft. The one that shows you to do better, building confidence to do it all again, gently shaping, crafting with your inspirations to show others what you've learned. Side 2. This is the recipe for the sense of accomplishment that only you know, savoring the sweet adventures of authorship. You are a proud parent. This is your birthright. It may not yet be perfect as the shape finds its way, but the true way to seduce is with a tasty beginning.
Dinah, thank you so much for that uplifting poem. I think it's a great way to end the evening. Actually, what I'd like to do is I'd like to close out the evening with one more poem of my own, if I can be so indulgent. It's called, what the heck is it called? Oh, it's called Things Left Undone. Things Left Undone. This poem, probably. Okay, that's it. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the poetry and pints. And stay safe, wash your hands, and we'll get through this together. Bye.